Welcome to the lore of the worlds of Evatoria. This is your humble game master, here to tell you some stories from within our worlds. The party that we have heard play before had at one point been given a old, torn storybook. Tonight we will explore those stories. The Frog in the Well. Once, a long time ago, there was a little frog who lived in a well. Content in his lot to hop around and catch flies all day, he wanted for naught. Then, after a time, another frog appeared, this one strange and brightly colored. They spoke of many things, and the new frog spoke of wonders and sights the poor little frog had never seen. No longer content in his life, our little frog no longer felt happy or content in his life by the well. He listened to the new and exciting frog, who told him promises of great riches and adventure. Impressed and in awe of these stories, our little frog promised to do whatever it took to go on these grand adventures like the brightly colored frog told him about. When he made this promise to the new frog, suddenly the new frog was no longer a frog, but something strange and unnatural, who demanded our little frog to go out from the safety of his well to far-off places and retrieve whatever the not frog demanded. When our frog tried to resist, he felt he could not. After many adventures, our little frog finally found an old wise turtle, who, hearing the plight of the frog, taught him secret ways to fight against the not frog. Growing stronger each day, the little frog finally was able to defeat the not frog and return to his well. However, it no longer felt the same as it did when he was content, as he had changed from his time away. No longer was he content in merely hopping around and catching flies. So this time, by choice, he left his well and explored the world. The Cave. A young man from a village lost to time was vain and selfish, with a great desire to find a way to preserve his looks and youth. One evening, while walking amongst the graves near the mountain, he stumbled across a mausoleum he had never seen before. He felt a great urge to enter. As he did, he found a path deep into the mountains, leading into a large cavern with a sharp drop. As he was standing there, three beings appearing of shadow appeared across the gap. Sitting in large chairs, they towered over him. "What do you desire?" asked the one in the center. "And what would you give for it?" asked the one to the left. The young man simply answered, "My youth and beauty. I would give almost anything for it." "You will do our bidding and bring us a sacrifice every 12 years. And if you do this, you will not age, and your looks will still forever," the one to the right said. "But we need a sacrifice now, of anything else you hold dear, and if you were ever to fail, we would claim you," the one on the left continued. The young man, hasty in his desires, quickly agreed to this. "Then the deal is made," the center one said. The young man found himself in a swirl of dark energy. When he emerged from the cavern, his village, including all of his possessions and family, were destroyed, seemingly attacked by bandits, and burned to the ground. The Deal. There was once a kind fisherman. Every morning before dawn, he would take his boat out to sea, staying there until late in the day. One winter's day, as he was fishing, he pulled a strange being, part skeleton, part fish. As this being was about to attack, the man offered his coat to the creature. This creature, taken aback by the supposed generosity, did not attack the man and accepted the gift. The man quickly picks up his net from the bottom of the boat, stating he was not wearing his coat, and offers to help the creature put it on. He wrapped the creature in the net, and then declared that he will only release the being if it swears on its life to protect him and his descendants whenever they are on the seas. The creature agrees, and the man releases it, and it disappears into the depths. Whenever the seas were rough or dangerous, the man and his descendants get sick and are unable to go to sea, so they do not drown, but they do not get any gain or sustenance for that day. Story 4 is a story in 3 parts. The first part, Lady of Ashes. There once was one of simple beginnings, living her days out in the middle of the woods in a tiny cabin with her father, a huntsman. He often traveled deep into the woods, leaving the motherless girl alone with instructions to never open the door. However, the poor girl was a curious sort and often forgot to follow the rules. One day, from the small window, she spotted a beautiful young woman with a basket of flowers at her side. The woman knocked 3 times, but the girl did not answer. With a smile, she turned and left. The next day, she returned again, this time with fresh fruits, again knocking 3 times. This time, the girl stuck her head out the window and watched as the woman left. However, on the 3rd day when she returned, for the girl's father still had not, she knocked again and offered the young girl a beautiful ornate choker. When the girl accepted it and put it on, her world went black. The next memory the young girl had was sitting outside her burning cabin, hearing screaming from within. She rushed to the door, the wood ablaze, yet her hands never burned. When she finally forced the door open, the charred remains of her father were all that were left. She sobbed, and even with the crackles of black energy swirling around her, there was no saving him. It was then the magic took hold. The ashes of her father began shifting under her hands, absorbing into her skin. All at once she could feel changes. Her body matured past her age. Her cheekbones become high and pronounced. The curve of her brow perfected. Her fingers came to the choker on her neck, and she smiled as she stood up. The curse awakened upon her, and she disappeared into a swirl of shadows. The Lady of Blood. There was once a young woman who no one would call good by any means. She coveted power, riches, and fame. However, she was but a humble merchant's daughter, forced to spend her days tending the house and cooking his meals. It wasn't until one night, when she heard the tale of a ball, that she snuck from her father's house and stole a dress from the line of a noblewoman to attend the party. There she danced and drank until nearly dawn. However, an hour before dawn, a woman screamed. A crowd of women circled the poor girl, all pointing and laughing, as the one pulled at her stolen dress while screaming that the girl had stolen it from her. It wasn't until the Lord himself laid eyes upon her that he stopped the madness and paid the accusing woman for her dress. The girl left that night in the tattered remains of her dress. It was on a road that a young man, clad in black, stepped from the woods. He offered her comfort. She swore the only thing she wanted in life was revenge on the castle and those who hurt her. So the man offered her that, but with a price. It was just a box, a simple wooden box that held the key to her darkest wishes. Inside the box lay a pair of beautiful gloves, the color of blood red. She held the gloves in her hands, hardly listening to the warning from the man. All she could see were the gloves as she slipped them onto her hands. When they sat in place, her eyes turned red, spreading over the once pure whites of her eyes till they stained the tears still fresh on her cheeks, turning them also into blood. The dress, still on her frame, shadowed in darkness, fell from her shoulders only to transform into a sea of red and black silk. As she faded into shadows, she found herself now cursed. The Lady of Mirrors. Our third lady comes neither from humble beginnings nor traumatic events, but rather a silver spoon in her cheeks. Her parents treated her so much like a doll, dressing her in the finest garments, the most sought-after makeups, and the most current hairstyles. Each morning a servant would dress her as if she were merely a doll. She was taught the finest things, such as playing the piano, painting, and singing. She would be gifted things from the commoners daily, but with no interest in these, she merely threw them away. One late afternoon, as she sat in her corset and ruffles, amongst the gardens of her parents' home, an elderly woman with hair like straw and wrinkles upon her brow presented the young girl with a gift. It was but a simple mirror, and with it a warning to never look too deeply, for all mirrors are powerful things. Not being of silver or gold, the girl smashed the mirror before the woman. It shattered, and one piece found its place deep within the girl's eye. The old hag of a woman smiled and left without a word, as the young woman screamed and held her face. The more the girl screamed and clawed at her face, the deeper the shard went into her eye, until finally her eyes turned into mirrors of the world. Her face now scarred, her beauty marred by the mirrored eye. Her parents were horrified. They tried to banish the girl. It was in that moment the fury overtook her, and as she set her eyes upon her parents, she turned them into mirrored glass and shattered them. It was at that moment the girl was held by the curse and faded into shadows. Story 5 has been ripped out of the book. However, there are new pages loosely put in the back. Of these pages, this is what is able to be read. The shadows, the dragon, and the fae. When the shadows had assembled, their powers grew stronger, and they turned their gazes back to the lands that they had forsaken, with their powers not just over blood, ash, and mirrors, but also to get those who would fight against them on their side. They quickly took power across the lands. Not only did they stalk across their lands, they found rifts, tears to lead them from one world to the next, one realm to another, taking down kingdoms and gods in their paths. Two peoples seemed immune to their charms, fey creatures of any sort, and those of strong draconic blood. Until one day they came upon the world of Evatoria, hidden in a little corner of the universes. The Fae had always enjoyed a close tie to Evatoria, making little pockets to pass between the Feywild and Evatoria. However, with the destruction the shadows wreaked, the Fae quickly closed their doors. The peoples of Evatoria quickly succumbed to the darkness, until one dragon, an old wise woman, reached out to the strongest archfey she could find, and striking a deal, the dragon would sacrifice herself for the protection of Evatoria, and the Fae would open permanent portals protected on both sides to help keep the shades away. However, the dragon's descendants would grow weaker and share in the protection of the Feywild through a trick the Archfey put into place, draining them of most of their draconic powers. The magic would only be able to protect Evatoria as long as those from other planes, apart from the Feywild, stayed away. However, as the story is written, great evil will come from a far-off world, reopening the door for the shades, and nature will change, and a new sacrifice will be made, as it is written in the prophecy of the great seer Marjorie the Blind.